Welcome everyone to this webinar for Global Mentoring Week 2015. Today we are joined by Robert Year, who will be speaking about mentoring, a perspective on relationship journey. But before I introduce Robert, let me tell you a little bit about Global Mentoring Week. During the Global Mentoring Week this November, the IIC&M will inspire mentors to get involved through local, national, and global activities designed to educate, empower, collaborate, and engage, and introducing a wider network to new possibilities and exciting opportunities. This is the first week of its kind and one that the IIC&M believes will grow from strength to strength in the coming years. Throughout the Global Mentoring Week, the IIC&M will publish white papers in the IIC&M members area, webinars from industry leaders, surveys, video footage that will be delivered free of charge and are accessible to everyone interested in mentoring. The IIC&M has identified over 2,500 categories of mentoring, where mentors help individuals grow and accelerate in all areas of their business, hobbies, careers, and life. The site is open to all those exploring mentorship, becoming a mentor, working with a mentor, or are currently working as a mentor on a formal or informal basis. But before, then to introduce everyone to the IIC&M, we are the officially recognized and preferred international accreditation body for coaches, mentors, training providers, and clients, creating excellence in the coaching and mentoring professions. Our members area demonstrates our commitment to support our members through the caliber of information we provide via webinars like these, our articles, recommended reading, community forums, and our think tank articles. To find out more, please explore the members area or contact Barbara Cormack on barbara@iicandm.org or Liz Howard at liz@iicandm.org. So without further ado, let me introduce you to Robert. Robert Yeo is the Executive Director and CEO of STADA. For the first 5 years of his tenure, STADA has gone through a transformation by the setting up of the 4 engines to develop and assist the members on their lifelong learning journey. His development vision to engage the professional community within Singapore and Asia Pacific had been realized through the inaugural ASTP STADA Asia Pacific Conference in November 2011. He is now advocating a new model for STADA based on the philosophy of building a professional community centered on the lifelong learning journey instead of focusing on serving as the only core approach. It is a model based on building as the foundation and serving as a means of sustainability. Growing STADA's members who are a part of the professional community, thus building is sowing in this manner. Human capital is an investment. In his capacity as the ED and CEO of STADA, he was appointed as the Global Chair Member of the Learning Innovations Laboratory at Harvard Graduate School of Education. He is also a panelist to the Singapore Human Capital Summit Awards and was involved as a judge for HR Congress 2014, organized by SMR Group of Malaysia, owned by Dato' Pellan. Robert has also been a part of organizing committee of the ATD Asia Pacific Conference and became a moderator of sessions in the recent 2015 event at Taiwan. His strengths lie in his ability to identify talent and nurture leaders. His experience in management stretched across the air, sea, and land industries, giving him a good and solid foundation on the needs of management from different perspectives. He has spoken on Gen Y and transformation leadership in Singapore, ASEAN, and India. He spoke on the topic Collaborations, the Way for the Future in the PMAP Conference 2014 in the Philippines, and recently presented on best practices in L&D as one of the panelists at the Trainers Conference 2015, organized by the Malaysian Human Resource Development Fund. Robert was awarded the Strategic Leadership Award during the Global HR Excellence Awards held in February 2011 at Mumbai, India, and the Achievers and Leaders Award for Excellence in Talent Management at the First Leaders and Achievers Awards 2011 held at Colombo, Sri Lanka. So without further ado, let me hand over to you, Robert. Robert, welcome.
Thank you, Lauren. I'm humbled by the introduction. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. When the International Institute of Coaching and Mentoring approached me to speak on this webinar, I struggled with what am I going to share with you? What topic should I touch on? And then I thought the best way to talk about mentoring is about the relationship journey. We seldom think of mentoring as a relationship journey, but truly mentoring is a life journey between the mentor and the mentee. Therefore, understanding of the perspective on relationship journey in mentoring would be useful to both the mentor and the mentee. We need, therefore, to understand that in this journey, we need to cement the personal relationship as a framework. It is about two persons on a journey. It is about how these two persons will take on this journey and how they are going to support each other in this lifelong journey. We also need to understand in today's context the cultural differences in a global environment, especially talent today is spread all over the world. And in our organizations, we have talents from different countries, and sometimes we could make simple mistakes because we do not understand the words we speak could actually be in a different meaning from somebody to somebody from another country. Therefore, we need to be sensitive and have self-awareness in doing so. The value of leadership is also about, and in mentoring, about the transfer of knowledge from acquisition to application. So today's presentation, I will try and take you through these 3 points. Let's start off with the word respect. Now, to begin a journey together and a relationship, we need to, first of all, learn to respect each other. What is the value of respect? Now, let me share with you a survey done by Hofstede, Dimensions of National Cultures, which was spread over a 7-year period, covering 117,000 IBM employees worldwide. What is this survey? He categorized them under 6 indexes: power distance, individualism versus collectivism, uncertainty avoidance, masculinity versus femininity, long-term orientation versus short-term orientation, indulgence versus restraint. I'm going to touch on the first 2 points, which is relevant in the context of respect. Now, if you look at this survey distance index, you will see that the power distance for Asian countries between the boss and the subordinate, that distance is a great gap. However, if you look at Western countries, the distance is narrowed down. Now, what does that mean? That means you have to then look at the correlation between power distance and individualism. Now, if you look at the index here, again, for Asian countries, the individualism index is very low, and for the Western countries is high. This means that in the Western countries, people or individuals are more prepared or have the freedom to voice their opinions much more than in Asian countries. And there is a reason for that. So we can now see that countries that share lower values of power distance tend to have higher individualistic society, which means really is this: the individual is closer to the boss and they can voice out their personal ideas, and the organization in some ways are more transparent. Countries in Asia generally share higher collectivistic values, meaning their approach towards respect is more anchored down to ancient wisdom of Confucius' teaching, which is basically respect the elder, respect the senior, and respect the family. So in this case, the individual, when he's talking to someone who's more senior and more someone they look up to, they tend to hold back their opinions. They tend to go along with, from the sense of respect, when they talk to these senior people within organizations or even the bosses. Now, let me just quickly touch on what do I mean by that from Confucius' teaching. Now, Confucius' teaching says respect for one's parents, filial piety is considered the most fundamental values, the root of all others. Let me quote this extract from Confucius. Few of those who are filial sons and respectful brothers will show disrespect to superiors, and there has never been a man who is respectful to superiors and yet create disorder. A superior man is devoted to the fundamental. When the roots is firmly established, the moral law will grow. Filial piety and brotherly respects are the root of humility. Now, how do I then look at the research and look at what I share with you on Confucius' values to really paint a picture? Now, in Hofstede's research outcome, we need to frame it into this context. And we have to take into the evolution of time. What do I mean by that? I mean, really, in today's context, if you look at countries where the power distance is narrowing, it is also due to the countries being more wealthy, and the wealth is spread, the income gap is narrowing, and therefore people has a sense of value and tend to be able to express that sense of value. Now, if you look at Asia, it's also going that way. As Asia economy is getting stronger, distribution of incomes improve, and therefore you see more of this individualistic opinion in today's company. This is also because organization structure in the past tend to be bureaucratic in the sense of it tends to be hierarchy, and therefore the boss and the one at the employee at the bottom, the gap is wide. However, in today's context, as companies become more lean, the structure becomes more metric, and therefore there's a shift in power distance. The organization structure becomes flatter, and therefore the gap narrows. Younger Asian generation today is also becoming more individualistic, and the reason is this: they all have been educated overseas. Technology has also shortened the gap between East and West. Informations are available on the net, and therefore, with more knowledge and ability to understand, the individual therefore feel that they should also contribute to the organization rather than just taking instructions. Therefore, I would like to use the word in today's context, not to have a communication, which is sometimes one way, meaning I communicate with you, I give you an instruction, but I'll encourage companies and mentors and mentees to have a conversation. A conversation here means two-person talking, trying to understand what they are sharing and giving the opportunity for clarification, the opportunity to work together and find a common ground if you face a challenge where you may have different opinions. So as this goes on, as you develop this interaction, the gap should narrow and the relationship in terms of context will grow. So let me now address the difference between maybe the way the East look at respect and the West look at respect. Now, as I said, the respect perspective from the East stems from values of Confucius, right? So my generation, my father's generation, tend to be very steep in embracing these values. Therefore, we need to respect our senior, we need to respect the family. However, the West have taken this context from that into respecting my individual rights. Therefore, my rights is important. You need to respect my rights. Now, is there anything wrong with that? I don't think so. However, one must always bear in mind that if we are not careful, we will fall into the trap of survival of the fittest, meaning we are back to rule of the jungle if every one of us pushes our individual rights first. We need to think that while we treasure our individual rights, we need to look at the individual rights as part of the framework of society. Therefore, society framework or societal framework sits on top of individual rights. So team over self. And if you look from that perspective, team over self, then you look at organization, therefore organization over team. What does this mean? This means really basically one has to align one's individual objectives with the team's objective, where the team is driving when you're talking about at the workplace and how you work and support each other. And then the team has to look at where they're driving in context to the organization's objective and the way the organization's culture, the way the organization is doing business, and all this have to be framed together, not as individual, but as a framework for organization, so that we all push in the same direction rather than tearing apart because we all values our rights. Now, what I'm going to share is we need to take a position, having known the Eastern values and the Western perspective of individual rights. Can we look at the middle ground? Can we take from the learning of the West and the East, and in moving forward, agree that this would be the way forward so that we can take the best of the East and the West, and together we form the we, first alphabet of West, first alphabet of East, therefore W and E becomes we. Collectively, we take this platform forward. Now, what is this platform? This platform is this, basically, as the older generation, we need to teach the younger generation or share with the younger generation values. And the values of respecting a senior and family is good value. And therefore, we need to be able to share this value with the younger generation to help them understand that this is good value that can be the anchor foundation for us to move forward. At the same time, as the older generation, we need to respect the younger generation. The younger generations are telling us, look, we want the space. We are individuals. We want the space, and we want you to allow us a space to grow. To grow, to be able to be responsible for our own action. We need you to respect us and give us a space and trust us that we can and is able to handle ourselves, the issues or challenges that we are facing, and we are responsible enough to be able to know when to step in or when to step out. So therefore, the way forward then is to embrace values, and the senior generation or the older generation should teach these values to the younger generation. At the same time, the senior generation must learn to respect the younger generation, to allow them space to grow and be accountable for themselves. So the check and balance here is the key word, accountable to each other. So one generation helping the other generation, and the other generation it itself learns to also manage the challenges themselves and therefore grow in that space to be their own man. This, to me, respect is the start of that relationship journey. Now, this is like saying, when you start the mentoring journey, the mentor and mentee begins the journey walking side by side. Translated, it means hand holding you to teach you the first step of how to be walking, how to take the first step to walk, and then to be walking eventually on your own. Now, the second, therefore, key word to be anchored down in relationship is building trust. How can I trust you? How can I be sure that we can trust each other? So to me, this is allowing ourselves to be vulnerable to each other. Let me share with you from John C. Maxwell, his book on 25 Ways to Win with People. This is what he said. Share a secret with someone. Sharing a secret makes people feel special. It includes others in your journey, increase the odds of a closer relationship. This is trust. This is what we are talking about. As we move from respect into a closer relationship, we learn to trust the person we are walking with. We learn to share our deeper secrets. Now, by doing that, we move one step closer. We now have this special relationship where we know that each of us know a little bit deeper of each other. And therefore, that relationship gets a bit intimate, gets a bit closer. So here we are talking about shifting that leadership style from hand-holding now to I trust you, and therefore I'm going to let go your hand, allow you to walk this journey yourself. But I'm behind you. I'm there to guide you. I'm there to give you a hand when you fall. I'm there to support you. So this is trust. Trust, therefore, is really the understanding of the meaning of being vulnerable. Basically, sharing and be prepared to open up so that there is no secrets between the two persons. And therefore, you become vulnerable to each other because you know the dark side or the deeper side of each other. Now, in doing so, by being vulnerable, we also then help to be accountable to each other so that if we backslide, if we do something wrong, if we are not sure, we know that there is always this check and balance. The check and balance where we can call upon if we did it. So this trust, therefore, goes a step further from respect. You are now developing a two-way relationship, a relationship where you trust each other enough to be able to be accountable to each other, to be vulnerable, and to be able to act as check and balance. So what's the value of trust in organization? The value of trust in organization is this. Over time, you develop a culture of transparency in organization. In other words, there's no secret. Everything that we do in organization is known, the processes, the system, and the way we do things, including individuals who take their own ownership of what they do. Now, by creating that culture, you are also, by inducing a culture of transparency, you are actually creating an environment where sharing of information and knowledge is optimized in today's information age. Anyway, we all know with technology, information is shared. The problem here is by who and when. So when we build a trust relationship, we know even in sharing this information is shared and protected because we know that this is shared for the good of the organization. It's not used as information to sabotage or to cause damage to the individual or to the organization. Therefore, it leads then to understanding the rights of the individual, yet in context to alignment with organizations of objectives and framework. Meaning, we are now shifting this thought of my rights, myself first, to understand that whatever in what context we look at, we are part of an organization. And therefore, whatever we do, it must also align to organization's objective, organization framework, processes, and system, so that at the end of the day, it is our responsibility as individual employees to deliver what we have been entrusted to do. Now, once you reach this stage, you are in a trust relationship. You therefore then move on to the third stage, which I call it as wisdom and space. Now, what is this wisdom and space, you ask? Now, the wisdom and space is actually about having the discernment, because now you're no more walking behind. You have now moved on to a position where you become a trusted advisor. What is a trusted advisor? A trusted advisor is not someone that's walking behind you, but someone who has now empowered you and give you that freedom to do and make decisions by your own. But he or she knows that by the drop of a hat, he or she will be there if you need them. So you are now taking a position where you are not breathing down the neck of that person. You are not going into his space. The person has the whole full control of the space. And if he needs you, just by a press of button, a phone call away, you'll be there to provide that advice. So here, you're actually trying to do, what you're actually trying to do is to help others win and succeed by giving them the empowerment to make decisions and to take this journey so that the person along the way can learn and grow himself as well. Okay, so we now know the secret of a successful learning journey with a mentor and a mentee. The key is to create that respect and then build it into a trust relationship and eventually being able to let go and sit back and be the trusted advisor. So now I'm going to touch on something that's related in the sense of this journey. So if you look at this and what I say, that it is really looking at the acquisition of knowledge to the application of knowledge. Now, what is this? Now we know we will learn from books, learned as we go to college and universities. So this is acquisition of knowledge. But in order to apply this knowledge, first of all, we need to reflect on what we have learned, on what is this knowledge all about. So from acquisition of knowledge to application of knowledge, there is this gap here. And this gap is actually the transfer of knowledge. How do you transfer the knowledge from acquisition into application? Now, the first step is you need to be able to reflect on what you have learned, reflect on what you know, and then how do you apply this knowledge at the workplace? Now, in doing so, you are actually internalizing that knowledge so that it becomes part of you. In other words, you are taking control and you're taking ownership of that knowledge and applying that knowledge in the workplace, and then reflecting at your application, tweak and improve. So all the time you are going through this process of internalization of yourself, your behavior, taking ownership of what you have, and then applying it and taking ownership again, tweak it again and apply. This is important because without reflection and without the transfer of knowledge into application, knowledge only sits with you. And if I may quote from a Confucius saying, then knowledge is empty. And why is it empty? Because it stays with you only. It is not passed on. And knowledge can only be useful when it's shared and passed on. I'd then like to talk about, we often hear these words, from taught knowledge to caught knowledge. Now, what is this all about? Can knowledge be taught? Can we teach knowledge? And can knowledge be caught? Can we catch knowledge? Now, so what is taught knowledge? Here is, in order for knowledge to be taught, in order for you to grasp knowledge, you need to have an understanding of what that knowledge is about, which in this case, part of your reflection will provide that understanding, that learning process. But that is knowledge being transferred through learning, through teaching, through sharing, and through your reflection and understanding. However, what is knowledge that is caught? Now, knowledge that is caught is usually through the application of knowledge. That journey you take, and that journey is your journey and your journey through time. Therefore, application and caught knowledge is the experience you gain. Experience from what? Experience from, if you are successful, learning and reflecting on what that you have done that helps you to be successful. Can you do it better? Can you bring it one level higher? Or if you have failed, what has gone wrong? What is it that you need to know? Can you avoid falling into the same pit hole again? Can you build on your failure so that you are stronger, more resilient, and able to overcome that failure, that mental setback, to push you to achieve greater things, in other words, to convert from failure to success, to basically take this journey on and develop yourself. Now, in order to start this whole journey, I would like to mention one or two more points, and that is to start this first journey as a mentee. The mentor needs to nurture you to create an inquisitive or an inquiring mind through self-awareness and task reflecting, transferring and internalizing thoughts and modifying behavior. What do I mean by that? I mean really this. It's not only asking questions, it's not only asking relevant questions, but be aware also that in the process of asking questions, in the process of being part of the team, you understand team dynamics so that when you ask questions, when you have any comments, your posturing is one of contribution rather one of passing judgment. And therefore, this helps you to reflect on your behavior. This helps you to understand what is needed to be said and how can you help the other person to transfer that knowledge, which is the acquisition, into application, and subsequently internalize it so that it becomes part of you. Create an atmosphere or environment in the company where there's room for each individual to discover their strengths, because it is from the strengths that we are going to build. It is from our weakness that we learn to discover our strength. And therefore, it's important that we must have that environment in organization for us to develop our strength. Now, again, just a quote from John Maxwell, when I discover the success seeds' strengths, I point them out to the individuals. Then I fertilize those seeds with encouragement and water them with opportunity. So you see, strengths on its own cannot grow. Strengths on its own also needs fertilization. It needs the mentor, the boss, the superior, the subordinate to understand that there must be encouragement. You need to nurture it. You need to water it. You need to create the opportunity for people to discover that journey. And therefore, as they continue that journey, they are able to catch that knowledge. Therefore, it's caught. In conclusion, I would therefore say to have a mentoring, a perspective of relationship journey, we need to understand how we have respect, how can we earn respect as the first start of the journey, and then how can we build trust so that we can trust each other and help each other to continue this journey as check and balance and accountable to each other, and then to have the wisdom of space so that we can help the individual to grow within that environment, to take ownership, to be his own man, and take accountability. This is what I have to share today, and I hope if you cannot remember what I say, you could remember these three circles: respect as the first start of the journey, building trust as the next part of it. So hand-holding, walking behind, and then wisdom and space, finally becoming the trusted advisor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Robert. That was truly fascinating. You had me from the first word. I've never heard you speak before, but I'm really glad that we had you on board. If anybody has any questions for Robert, please can you put them into your Q&A box now? I'm sure he'd be more than willing to answer them for us. In the meantime, Robert, if anybody would like to get hold of you, do you have some details that you could share with them on how they get hold of you?
Yes, you can contact me at sada.org.sg, and you can email to me, robertyo@sada.org.sg.
Fantastic. So Robert's details are on screen now. If anyone wants to drop him a line, if they want to discuss further what he's been talking about, I'm sure he'd be happy to answer your questions. It doesn't look like we have any questions this afternoon, Robert, so I'm going to thank you so much for your time. Thank you for spending time with us. Thank you for spending time with us on Global Mentoring Week. I appreciate the listeners for listening, and thank you for joining us on this webinar. Our aim is to provide value-added information during Global Mentoring Week, as well as provide ongoing support to our members in order they might develop successful businesses and continue to grow and learn themselves. We'd love to hear from you if you wish to present or receive suggestions for other webinar subjects you may benefit from. In the meantime, please access our online library in the IIC&M's members area for our webinar recordings, webinar calendar, articles, recommended reading, and other members' resources. And just so that you know, if you would like to hear this webinar again, it will be available the whole week at www.iicnm.org, and you can log in there. Thank you, everyone. Hope to see you at other webinars. Bye. Thanks, Robert. Bye.